welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Jess. I talk about writing, self-publishing, and travel. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of the books that I have read more than twice, and I'm also going to tell you why these are some of my top favorite reads. Now, I hope you guys can hear me okay. It's really hot here in Ontario, so I do have the fan going in the background. I don't have a microphone yet. I do hope to invest in one eventually, and possibly also a ring light, but we'll see. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I will try to speak up, but like I said, there's going to be a lot of background noise today because we're also running the air conditioning in the office. So the idea for this video came from a post that I saw online recently where somebody was asking people why they don't visit libraries more often. And the comments were really interesting back and forth about the pros and cons of visiting a library versus buying books at a bookstore. Now, I will be the first to say that libraries are invaluable resources, and if you have one, you should absolutely check it out. As many of you know, they're not just a source for amazing free books, but they also provide a lot of other resources like computers, internet access, social support. You can often rent movies and games. At least I know you can from the Peterborough Public Library. I'm not sure how it is in other places. Not to mention they often run free programs for kids like Kids Reading Week and stuff like that. So 100% I support libraries. In fact, when I was in high school, I worked at my school's library, so I like to think I know a little bit about how they're run, but I do think that they are very underappreciated and underutilized. That being said, I know for me personally, I tend to be a slower reader, and that's not because I don't enjoy reading, because I really do. But I find that with my schedule, I often don't have time to sit down for hours and hours and engross myself in a book. And lately what I've been doing is I have one book right now that I am trying to read for at least 20 minutes in the evening before I go to bed because it helps me to just wind down and not think so much about stuff. And I find that if I'm on my phone and I'm reading an ebook, I'm more likely to stay up way past when I should actually be going to sleep. I think both bookstores and libraries have their pros and cons, and I don't think one is better or worse than the other. But this is a video about my top reads, so let's get started. Okay guys, so we're going to start off with my absolute favorite book here. This one is called Wild by Cheryl Strayed. If you haven't read this one, I'll give you a very brief summary of what it's about. Basically, when Cheryl Strayed was 26 years old, she went on a solo hike of the Pacific Crest Trail, beginning her journey in the Mojave Desert of California and hiking north for 1,100 miles until she reached the Bridge of the Gods in Oregon. Now, at the time of her hike, Cheryl admitted that she was basically stuck in a downward spiral. She had lost her mom quite recently to cancer, and as a result of her mom's death, her family completely disintegrated. Her relationship with her stepfather fell apart as well. After that, she ended up in a series of abusive or unhealthy relationships, including a very unhealthy and dangerous relationship with a man named Joe. This led Cheryl down the path of addiction herself. She was married for a while to a man named Paul, but then that marriage also unfortunately began to fall apart. So she ended up divorcing Paul, and then shortly after that she went on her hike, hoping to find herself and pull her life back together. Wild was also made into a movie starring Reese Witherspoon a few years ago. Of course, I have seen that movie 3 times now, so if you are a Reese Witherspoon fan, absolutely check it out. But first, I would highly recommend that you read the book because there are a lot more subtleties and nuances, a lot of really funny moments, a lot of absolutely heartbreaking moments. And I think part of the reason why I related so deeply to her was because, as many of you know, I also lost my mom to cancer, and it was a very unexpected thing. When I found this book, it felt like a life preserver had been thrown for me, so I do consider it to be like my personal Bible. And I'm not a religious person, but like I said, I do come back to this book quite often because sometimes I just need to know that I'm not alone. Some of you probably recognize My Sister's Keeper. If you haven't read this book, or you haven't read it in a long time and you're a little fuzzy on the details, My Sister's Keeper is about a family whose oldest daughter, Kate, is diagnosed with leukemia when she's very young. So the family ends up conceiving another child named Anna, who is considered to be a perfect genetic match for her sister. Over the course of Anna's life, she is subjected to numerous harvests, transplants, medical tests, blood draws, you name it, all in the name of saving her older sister Kate's life. There is a third child, Jesse, who is basically ignored because he is seen as serving no practical purpose in the family. He is just the unfortunate, forgotten, invisible middle child, and as a result of that, he ends up going down the path of juvenile delinquency and crime. But this particular book was very controversial when it came out, and is still capable of creating a stir simply because of the ethical dilemmas that go into this particular situation. I'm not going to state my personal opinion on whether or not it is ethically right to conceive one child to save the life of another, because that is a minefield of controversy, and this is not a political channel. But I absolutely love the multi-POV approach because it gives us a nice, well-rounded 360-degree view of the issue and the family at the center of it. It was the book that really got me into Jodi Picoult's writing, and now I'm a hardcore fan, so I guess it did its job. But absolutely check it out if you're into tough topics that are handled with care and consideration. This book here is called The Valley by Gail Friesen. In 2011, I picked it up, not even thinking about buying a book at the time, but I saw it on a shelf and the cover caught my eye, so I started reading it right there in the store, and I said, hey, you know what, this sounds pretty good, I'd like to know what happens next, so I bought it. So this particular book is about a middle-aged woman named Gloria. She is in a slightly unhappy, dissatisfied marriage. She has a teenage daughter. You know how it goes. She's kind of gotten to that point where she's about to begin her midlife crisis. So she takes her teenage daughter from their home in Winnipeg and drives back to Fraser Valley, BC, where Gloria grew up. And when she returns to the Mennonite community that she has shunned, she finds that virtually nothing has changed, and it's basically like opening a time capsule. Everything is still exactly the way she remembers it. It's a little bit dusty, a little bit rusty, but she finds that the people there have moved on in very different and unexpected ways. I'm not sure if it's still available in chapters. As I said, I purchased this book a long time ago, and bookstores do tend to cycle out old titles to make room for new ones. So if you can't find it in bookstores, check Amazon, because I know for sure it's still available there. No doubt many of you have heard of this next book, which I have read probably 3 or 4 times now. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. It takes place in World War II Germany, and it follows Liesl Meminger, the book thief, who, when she is about 10 or 11 years old, is on a train with her mom and very sick younger brother. In the course of the journey, the younger brother ends up dying, so they take the young boy out into the snow to bury him. At that time, Liesl sees a book on the ground called The Gravedigger's Handbook, and of course, while her mom is absolutely consumed with grief, Liesl reaches down and she picks up the book and tucks it into her coat, and thus begins the book thief's journey to steal books. So when Liesl arrives in Germany, she is illiterate and she is still in possession of The Gravedigger's Handbook. Her new family realizes that she can't read, so they agree to teach her how to read. This, of course, leads her down an even more dangerous path as Hitler rises to power and books are burned in the street. When she is eventually made part of the Hitler Youth, she attends her very first public book burning, where she steals her second book. Her father figure at that time warns her that this is a very dangerous practice, she cannot do this again, and if she is caught, it will be disastrous for the entire family. But he does recognize her absolutely insatiable love for books and storytelling, and not only does he acknowledge that she loves to read, but he also encourages her to write her own stories. If you like historical fiction, especially very involuntarily rebellious characters like Liesl, give this one a go. This book, like so many others, was made into a movie that I didn't love. Again, normally I love movies, but I feel that the problem with so many of these adaptations from books to movies is that because of the time constraint, so much of the backstory, so many of the little nuances are lost. There's a lot to unpack in here, but I think ultimately this is a really amazing story filled with hope and love and human kindness in a place where it was often very hard to find. This next book is not a novel, but a poetry collection, and it is called Blue Horses by Mary Oliver. I've read this one a couple of times now, and like Wild, I come back to it every once in a while when I need a little bit of a reality check. What I really loved about Blue Horses, aside from the cover obviously, was the fact that this poetry not only romanticizes the natural world, but it really forces me as the reader to slow down and smell the flowers. Mary Oliver has a very whimsical approach to storytelling in her poetry. She has such an appreciation for the natural world, and she also seems to have a very unique take on some of the inanimate objects she shares her world with, and she believes that everything has a soul or a purpose or a spirit inside of it, and she believes in getting in touch with these things and spilling her feelings onto the page. And in fact, guys, I'm going to read you my very favorite poem from the collection Blue Horses. It's called I Don't Want to Be Demure or Respectable. I don't want to be demure or respectable. I was that way, asleep, for years. That way, you forget too many important things. How the little stones, even if you can't hear them, are singing. How the river can't wait to get to the ocean, and the sky, it's been there before. What traveling is that? It is a joy to imagine such distances. I could skip sleep for the next 100 years. There is a fire in the lashes of my eyes. It doesn't matter where I am. It could be a small room. The glimmer of gold brome I saw in the kitchen pot was missed by everyone in the house. Maybe the fire in my lashes is a reflection of that. Why do I have so many thoughts? They are driving me crazy. Why am I always going anywhere instead of somewhere? Listen to me or not, it hardly matters. I'm not trying to be wise. That would be foolish, because I am just chattering. So, if that resonated with you, I'm glad. If it didn't, there are still so many more poems in her collection, and I would highly recommend you check them out. Anyway, guys, that is all for today. I will leave the links for each of the books I talked about today down in the description below in case you'd like to check them out for yourself. But for right now, I think I've talked enough. So thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I will catch you again on the next one. Bye.